Change the tone. It matters.
Talk to yourself like you talk to someone you love. Stop for a second. If someone talked to a person you love the way you talk to yourself every single day, would you allow it? Would you stay silent while they were put down, rushed, devalued, diminished? Why do you allow it for yourself every day? In silence, this book won't teach you to love yourself. It will teach you to stop being cruel to yourself. And that's where everything else begins. Introduction. You hear that voice? The internal dialogue that shapes your reality. There's a voice inside your head. You hear it all day, every day. It comments on everything, what you do, how you look, whether you're good enough. And most of the time, you don't even notice it. It's just background noise. The soundtrack of your life, but that voice, that constant internal dialogue, is shaping your reality more than anything else in your life, because what you say to yourself determines how you feel. How you feel determines what you do. What you do determines who you become. So if that voice is cruel, your life will reflect that cruelty. If that voice is harsh, you'll live in harshness. If that voice is relentless, you'll never find peace. But here's what most people don't realize: that voice isn't you. It's learned, it's absorbed from others, and repeated so many times that it feels like it's your own. But it's not. And the moment you realize that, you can change it. Not by forcing positivity, not by pretending everything's fine, but by choosing to speak to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you love. With kindness, with patience, with understanding. And when you do, everything changes. Not because your circumstances change, but because you stop being your own enemy. And you become your own ally. And that changes everything. Chapter 1. How you actually talk to yourself. You can be outwardly strong, but inwardly constantly wounded. You think you're fine. You present as capable, as strong, as together, but inside there's a voice that never stops attacking. You're not good enough. Why did you say that? You always mess this up. Everyone's better than you, and you think this is normal. That everyone talks to themselves this way, but it's not normal. It's cruelty, quiet cruelty, invisible cruelty, but cruelty nonetheless. 1. The invisible cruelty of inner speech. The cruelty of inner speech is invisible to others. No one hears it. No one sees it. But you feel it every single day. It's the voice that says you're so stupid when you make a small mistake. You're so lazy when you need a break. You're so weak when you feel overwhelmed. And you think this is motivation, that being hard on yourself will make you better. But it doesn't. It makes you tired, anxious, defeated, because cruelty doesn't inspire growth. It inspires survival, and survival mode isn't living, it's just getting through the day. So if you're wondering why you feel exhausted even when you're not doing that much, look at how you're speaking to yourself. Because that voice, that constant, attacking voice, is draining you every single day. 1. 2 phrases that destroy slowly. Some phrases don't feel that bad in the moment, they're just thoughts. Quick comments, passing judgments, but repeated over and over, they destroy slowly. Phrases like "I should have known better." This one makes you feel like you're always behind. Always failing to predict what you couldn't have known. Why can't I just be normal? This one makes you feel like there's something fundamentally wrong with you. I'm so pathetic. This one attacks your core, makes you feel like you're inherently worthless. Everyone else can do this, why can't I? This one sets up constant comparison. Makes you feel like you're always less than. These phrases, repeated day after day, don't just make you feel bad. They shape your identity. They make you believe that you are broken, that you are not enough, that you are fundamentally flawed. And once you believe that, you stop trying to grow, because why would you if you're already broken? 3. Why you consider this normal. You consider this normal because you've been doing it so long. Since childhood, probably, you heard adults talk to themselves this way. You heard them be critical, be harsh, be dismissive of their own needs. And you learned that that's how you're supposed to be. You heard others criticize you. And you absorbed their words and turned them into your own inner voice. So now, when you make a mistake, you don't need anyone else to criticize you. You do it yourself. Automatically. And you think this is just being realistic, being honest, keeping yourself in check. But it's not. It's learned cruelty. And just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's helpful, doesn't mean you have to keep doing it, because you don't. You can change the way you speak to yourself. But first, you have to see that what you're doing now isn't normal, isn't necessary, and isn't helping you. Chapter 2. Where that tone came from. That voice wasn't born with you. You learned it. The harsh voice in your head didn't come from nowhere. You weren't born speaking to yourself this way. You learned it. From somewhere, from someone. And understanding where it came from doesn't excuse it. But it helps you see that it's not who you are. It's just what you absorbed. 2. When other people's words became yours. Think back. Who criticized you growing up? A parent who said, "Why can't you do anything right?" A teacher who said, "You're not trying hard enough." A sibling who said, "You're so annoying." A coach who said, "You're weak." Those words didn't just hurt you in the moment. They became your inner voice. Because when you're young, you don't have the ability to filter. You don't think that's their opinion. You think that's the truth, and you internalize it. So now, years later, you don't need them to say it anymore. You say it to yourself, in their voice, with their tone, with their harshness. And you think it's your voice, but it's not, it's theirs. And you've been carrying it for years, repeating it every day, believing it as truth, but it never was truth. It was just their pain projected onto you. And you don't have to carry it anymore. 2. Criticism as a form of care. Maybe the people who criticized you didn't mean to be cruel. Maybe they thought they were helping. I'm just pushing you to be better. I'm preparing you for the real world. I'm making sure you don't get complacent. And maybe they believed that, but here's the truth. Criticism disguised as care is still criticism. And it still hurts. It still creates shame. It still teaches you that love is conditional on performance. That you're only valuable when you're achieving. And that you're never good enough as you are. So now, even when no one's watching, you criticize yourself. Because you learned that love comes with conditions, and you're trying to meet those conditions every single day. But you can't, because conditions keep moving, and you end up exhausted chasing an approval that never comes. Because it's not outside anymore, it's inside, and you're withholding it from yourself. 2. Why the past still speaks. The past still speaks because you never questioned it. You absorbed those voices and you assumed they were right. So you kept repeating them year after year until they became automatic. Until you couldn't share the difference between their voice and yours. But the past doesn't have to keep speaking. You can interrupt it. You can question it. You can say that was their belief about me, not the truth about me, and you can choose a new voice. Not by denying the past, but by deciding it doesn't get to define your present or your future, because you're not that child anymore. You're an adult, and you get to decide how you speak to yourself now. Chapter 3. Why you wouldn't talk to a loved one this way. Cruelty doesn't motivate, it breaks. Imagine someone you love deeply. Your best friend, your partner, your child. Now imagine they made a mistake. Would you say to them, "You're so stupid. Why can't you do anything right? You're pathetic"? No, you wouldn't, because you know that would hurt them. That would break them. That would make them feel small, feel worthless, feel defeated. So why do you say it to yourself? 3. 1. The difference between support and pressure. There's a difference between supporting someone and pressuring them. Support says, "This is hard, but I believe you can handle it." Pressure says, "You should be handling this better." Support says, "It's okay to struggle." Pressure says, "Why are you still struggling?" Support says, "Take your time." Pressure says, "Hurry up." And when you pressure yourself constantly, you don't perform better. You perform scared. You make decisions from fear, not from clarity. You push yourself so hard that you burn out. Because pressure doesn't create sustainable growth, it creates survival mode. And survival mode isn't where your best work happens. Your best work happens when you feel supported. When you feel safe, when you feel like it's okay to try and fail without being destroyed for it. And you can give yourself that. You can be your own support instead of your own pressure. 3. 2. Why love empowers, not relaxes. You might think, if I'm kind to myself, I'll get lazy. I'll stop trying. I'll become complacent. But that's not what happens. When you're kind to yourself, you don't become weak, you become strong. Because kindness gives you energy. It gives you the safety to try new things, to take risks, to fail and get back up, because you know you won't destroy yourself for failing. But when you're cruel to yourself, you become paralyzed. Because every action becomes high stakes, every mistake becomes proof that you're not good enough. And so you stop trying, not because you're lazy, but because you're terrified of your own reaction to failure. So love doesn't make you weak, it makes you brave, because when you know you'll treat yourself with kindness, no matter what happens, you're willing to try anything. 3. The mistake of "I need to be stricter with myself." You think being stricter will help. I need to be harder on myself. I need to stop being so soft. I need more discipline. But strictness isn't discipline. Strictness is punishment, and punishment doesn't teach growth. It teaches fear. When you're strict with yourself, you learn to act out of fear of punishment, not out of genuine desire, and actions taken from fear are never sustainable. Because eventually you rebel against your own strictness, you burn out. You give up, you say, "I can't do this anymore." But if you speak to yourself with kindness and firmness, not cruelty, you don't need to rebel. Because you're not fighting yourself, you're working with yourself, and that's sustainable. That's what creates real lasting change. Chapter 4. The myth that softness is weakness. Softness isn't weakness, it's safety. You've been taught that being soft with yourself is weak. That you need to be tough, to push through, to never give yourself a break. But that's a lie. Softness isn't weakness, it's strength, the kind of strength that lasts. 4. 1. Why fear is confused with discipline. Discipline and fear feel similar, both make you act. But the motivation is different. Discipline says, "I'm doing this because it matters to me." Fear says, "I'm doing this because I'll hate myself if I don't." Discipline comes from within. Fear comes from avoidance, and most people think that the fear is discipline. That pushing yourself through punishment is what creates results, but it's not. Fear-based action is exhausting. It drains you. It makes you resentful of the very things you're trying to achieve. But discipline rooted in self-respect is energizing. It makes you feel proud. It makes you feel aligned because you're not acting to avoid punishment. You're acting to honor yourself, and that's the difference. 4. 2. How internal violence exhausts you. Every harsh word you say to yourself takes energy. Every time you call yourself stupid, you drain your own resources. Every time you criticize your body, you create internal conflict, and internal conflict is exhausting. Because you're constantly at war with yourself, and war requires energy. So you spend all day fighting yourself, criticizing yourself, hating yourself. And then you wonder why you're so tired, why you have no energy for the things you actually want to do. It's because you spent all your energy fighting an internal battle that didn't need to happen. So if you want more energy, stop fighting yourself. Start speaking to yourself with the same gentleness you'd offer to someone you're trying to protect, because that someone is you. 4. 3. The strength of a stable person. Stable people aren't the ones who push through everything with force. Stable people are the ones who know when to push and when to rest. They're the ones who speak to themselves with kindness in hard moments. They're the ones who don't collapse under pressure because they're not already collapsing internally from their own self-attack. Stability comes from internal safety, and internal safety comes from speaking to yourself like someone you're trying to take care of, not someone you're trying to punish. So if you want to be stable, start by creating safety inside yourself. And that starts with your words. Chapter 5. What healthy internal dialogue sounds like. You don't need to be rushed, you need to be heard. Healthy internal dialogue doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It doesn't mean lying to yourself. It means speaking truth without destruction. It means being honest without being cruel. 5. 1. A tone without devaluing. Healthy self-talk has a tone that's firm but not harsh, honest but not cruel. It sounds like, this is hard and that's okay, not, this shouldn't be this hard for you. It sounds like you're doing your best right now, not, you should be doing better. It sounds like it's okay to need help, not, why can't you handle this alone? See the difference? One acknowledges reality without making you feel small for being in it. The other acknowledges reality and then punishes you for it. And punishment doesn't help you grow. It just makes you feel like you're not allowed to be human. 5. 2 words that provide support. Here are the words that actually support you. I see that you're struggling. That makes sense, given what you're facing. This validates your experience instead of dismissing it. You've handled hard things before, you'll figure this out too. This reminds you of your capability without pressuring you to be perfect. It's okay to take a break. This gives you permission to rest without guilt. You're learning. It's okay not to know yet. This allows for growth without expecting instant mastery. These words create safety. Safety to try, safety to fail, safety to be human. And in that safety, you actually grow. Because you're not spending all your energy defending yourself from your own attacks. 5. 3. Honesty without destruction. You can be honest with yourself without being destructive. Honesty says, I didn't handle that well. Destruction says, I'm such an idiot. Honesty says, I need to work on this. Destruction says, I'm hopeless. Honesty says, I'm struggling right now. Destruction says, I'm weak. See the difference? Honesty observes, destruction judges. Honesty creates space for improvement. Destruction creates shame that paralyzes. So yes, be honest with yourself. See where you need to grow, but do it in a way that leaves you feeling capable of growing. Not defeated before you even try. Chapter 6. Practicing a new way to talk to yourself. The new voice doesn't appear instantly, it's trained. Changing the way you speak to yourself isn't instant. It's not a switch you flip, it's a practice, a daily intentional practice. Unlike any practice, it gets easier the more you do it. 6. 1. Replacing phrases, not thoughts. You don't need to change your thoughts. Thoughts come automatically. What you need to change is what you say about those thoughts. When the thought, "I'm not good enough," appears, you don't need to fight it. You just need to respond differently. Old response, "You're right. I'm really not." New response, "That's a thought I've had it many times." It's not the truth. When the thought, "I always mess up," appears, old response, "Yeah, I really do." New response, "I've made mistakes like everyone does." That doesn't mean I always mess up. See, you're not denying the thought. You're just not agreeing with it automatically, and that small shift changes everything. 6. 2. How to talk to yourself in difficult moments. Difficult moments, or when the old voice gets loudest, when you make a mistake, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel like you're failing. That's when you need the new voice most. So here's how to use it when you make a mistake. Old, "I'm so stupid." New, "Okay, that didn't go how I wanted. What can I learn from this?" When you're overwhelmed, old, "I can't handle this." New, "This is a lot right now. What's one small thing I can do?" When you're tired, old, "I'm so lazy." New, "I'm exhausted. My body needs rest." When you feel inadequate, old, "Everyone else is better than me." New, "I'm on my own path." Comparison isn't helpful. These responses don't fix the situation, but they stop you from making it worse by attacking yourself. 6. 3. The first changes in how you feel. The first time you speak to yourself with kindness in a moment of difficulty, you'll feel something shift. Not dramatically, but noticeably. You'll feel a softening, a release of tension you didn't even know you were holding. You'll feel like you can breathe a little deeper, like the world isn't quite as harsh as it felt a moment ago. And that feeling, that small relief, is your body responding to safety. Because for the first time in maybe a long time, you didn't attack yourself. You supported yourself, and your nervous system noticed, and it relaxed just a little. And that's the beginning of real change. Chapter 7. When you slip back into old patterns. You don't have to be perfect to be gentle. You will slip back. You will catch yourself speaking to yourself with the old harsh voice. And when you do, you'll be tempted to say, "See, I can't even do this right." But that is just the old voice again. 7. 1. Returning to old patterns. Old patterns are strong. They've been running for years. So it makes sense that they don't disappear overnight. When you're stressed, when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, the old voice will return. "You're so stupid. Why can't you get it together?" And you'll notice you just spoke to yourself the old way. And that's okay. That's not failure. That's just what happens when you're learning something new. You don't get it right every time, and you don't need to. 7. 2. How not to blame yourself for slipping. When you notice you slipped back into the old voice, don't say, "I failed." Say, "I noticed." That's it. Just notice. "Oh, I just spoke to myself the old way." And then choose a new response right now. "Okay, let me try again. With kindness this time, that's all. No guilt, no shame, no punishment. Just notice and adjust, because the goal isn't to never slip up. The goal is to catch yourself faster and return to kindness more quickly. And the more you practice that, the more automatic it becomes. 7. 3. Calm return. The return to the new voice should be calm. Not frantic, not panicked, not harsh. Just calm, like redirecting a child who wandered off the path. You don't yell at them. You gently guide them back. Same with yourself. When you notice the old voice, you gently guide yourself back to the new one. "Hey, let's not go there. Let's be kinder." and you continue. Without drama, without self-attack, just a gentle redirect. And that gentleness, that calm is what creates the safety you need to actually change. Chapter 8. How life changes when it's safe inside. You don't become a different person, you stop fighting yourself. When you start speaking to yourself with kindness, you don't become someone else. You become more yourself because you're no longer spending all your energy fighting an internal war. 8. 1 Decisions without internal pressure. When it's safe inside, decisions become easier. Not because the decisions are simpler, but because you're not adding internal pressure to every choice. Before, every decision felt like, if I choose wrong, I'll destroy myself. So you overthought everything, you second-guessed constantly. You paralyzed yourself with analysis, but now, when you speak to yourself with kindness, decisions feel different. You think, I'll choose what feels right, and if it doesn't work out, I'll handle it. I'll adjust, I'll be okay. And that trust in yourself, that knowing that you won't destroy yourself for making a mistake, frees you to actually decide and move forward without the paralyzing fear of your own reaction. 8. 2 Calmness in action. When it's safe inside, you move through life with more calm. Not because life gets easier, but because you're not constantly bracing for your own attack. You're not waiting for the moment you mess up so you can tear yourself apart. You're just acting, trying, learning, adjusting. Without that constant commentary of self-criticism. And that creates a calmness that people notice. They say, you seem different. And you are, not because you changed your personality, but because you stopped fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, you have energy for everything else. 8. 3 A new sense of yourself. You feel different inside, not like a different person, but like yourself without the constant threat of self-attack. You feel lighter, not because you're avoiding problems, but because you're not creating additional problems by attacking yourself for having problems. You feel more capable, not because you suddenly have new skills, but because you trust that you'll figure things out. Without needing to be perfect, you feel more present, because you're not constantly replaying past mistakes and attacking yourself for them. You're just here, in this moment, doing what you can with what you have, and being okay with being human. And that's the new sense of yourself. Not perfect, not invincible, just human, and safe to be that way. Conclusion: you can start now. Start talking to yourself the way you talk to someone you want to protect, because that person is you. You made it, not to the end of learning, to the beginning of practicing, because this isn't just information. It's a practice, a daily, intentional practice of speaking to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you love. And here's what happens when you start doing that. You stop being afraid of yourself. You stop walking through life terrified of your own reaction to making a mistake. You stop shrinking to avoid your own criticism. You start living as yourself, fully, honestly, imperfectly, because you know that even when you mess up, you won't destroy yourself for it. You'll speak to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you're trying to help, not someone you're trying to punish, and that changes everything. So here's what you do next. You notice the next time the harsh voice appears, and instead of agreeing with it, you pause, and you say, would I say this to someone I love? And if the answer is no, you choose different words, words that are honest but kind, words that acknowledge reality but don't destroy you for being in it. And you do that again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, not perfectly, not flawlessly, just consistently. with the intention to treat yourself the way you treat someone you're trying to protect. Because that someone is you, and you deserve the same kindness you'd give to anyone else you care about. So start today, right now, in this moment. The next time a harsh thought appears, respond with kindness. And watch as everything begins to shift, not because your life changes, but because you stop being your own enemy and you become your own ally. And that's when life finally feels like something you can actually live, not just survive. The end. What happens next? You close this book and you pay attention to the next harsh thing you say to yourself. And you pause and you ask, would I say this to someone I love? And if the answer is no, you say something different. Something kinder, not fake, not forced, just kind. The way you'd speak to someone you're trying to take care of. Because that someone is you, and you deserve that kindness. Starting now,